My name is Annette Wragge. There might be a few of you out there that I don't know, but I'm the state coordinator for the Nebraska ASD Network, and we are funded by the Department of Education, so shout out to the Department of Ed. And we have had a multi-year relationship with FDF and have gotten quite a bit of support for implementing the work that Dr. Hanley just described. A couple of things. I'm going to try to just do a quick look back and talk about this work in Nebraska schools. So we have been providing, and we as the ASD Network, referral consultation support to Nebraska schools since 2002. And that, again, is funded by the Department of Ed. And we have a team of highly trained professionals. Raise your hand if you work for the ASD Network. These gals are so highly skilled, right? And we have BCBAs, many of us, and we work with very talented school teams. And our school teams really run the gamut, but many of them have, behavior support staff, BCBAs. So when I show you these things that were happening, I want you to know that even with some highly trained consultation support, schools were struggling. And even with some very well-meaning teams in schools doing, really good behavior intervention plans, these things were still happening, right? So we began really looking at our feedback from schools and administrators and parents and considering, how do we address these things? And of the things on the slide, I'm not going to go through all of them, but staff burnout and teacher turnover was a real situation for schools, right? And then this one in the middle, fewer expectations for the student in order to avoid problem behavior, right? Worlds were getting real small for students. They were not having access to classrooms, specially designed instruction. And so we were contemplating that. And in addition to contemplating those things, we were really having a shift as well in our internal team. We really wanted to look for ways to align our values with our practices, all right? And so as Dr. Hanley talked about, safety, dignity, and rapport, and creating positive, supportive environments for learning for all students, super important to us, and we wanted to make sure that was happening. So that brings us to our work with FTF Behavioral Consulting. They provide on-site, which we've had a few, but also distance-based learning, support to, ABA clinics, schools, all of, those who might be supporting individuals with a variety of disabilities who are impacted by behavior. So we started, I did go back and count, an almost 6-year relationship that has provided for us, for our core team, much needed professional development. And then really a formula and a way to support school teams in doing this work. So really quickly, all I'm going to say about this is we started by getting trained ourselves. And I will tell you that as a core team, these folks that are here and the rest of our team, they have followed Dr. Hanley around, okay? They have been at in-person conferences, sitting in the front row. So we'd had training. But when we were going to do this work with schools, we went back, we did the training again, and then we started working with FTF staff to actually implement in schools. So that was a really important component. So we grew in our understanding of the process as well as our consultation skills to help schools do this work. And we did kind of an implementation cohort model, and then we also did a kind of a train the trainer model as well. And again, I'm not going to go into all of that, but just know that we wanted to get feedback on our processes, right? So how we were able to support others in doing this work was really important to us. But we still had some questions. We were like, okay, this is a lot of training that schools have to take to do this. Are they going to be willing to meet with us and design the assessment, design the skills-based treatment? Is this going to work in schools? So those were some questions. So following training with FTF, way back in 2021-22, we reached out to schools and we offered to partner with them, and we said, let's start with PFA-SBT, and then we brought balance in pretty quickly. But initially we had 9 students and 9 districts that said, yes, we are on board. And just so you know, with those 9 school teams, That year, we provided 169 activities. So we were like in their ear. Dr. Hanley said, you know, it's hard to think of empathy statements, if you can believe it, on the fly. So we might be in the ear saying, you could say, oh, I know that's hard, it's all right. You know, like we would be coaching. And so there was a lot of support, but if you look over to 24-25, last year we had 64 requests to help individual student teams do this work with 33 districts and almost 1,000, you know, consultation activities. I'll talk a little bit about those. But I also wanted to drill down and really just take a close look at last year, right? Let's just take 1 year and see how effective the behavior programming was for students really related to the components of the intervention. And Dr. Hanley talked about many of those things. So we focused on last year, and we ended up getting a 58% response rate. And I will tell you that I sent this out this year, this fall, so people are busy, and we really appreciate it. We had 37 responses from those 64 school teams that we worked with last year. And this graph shows that out of those 37 respondents, 94% agreed or strongly agreed that the behavior program helped reduce the target student's problem behavior. Just to ask, if I look back to 5 years ago, and my team, I'm looking at you, when we helped team with students, or with school teams, excuse me, around severe behavior, do you think we were having that kind of an impact? No. Schools, are you seeing for, again, those tier 3 interventions, are you seeing that kind of effect? A response to behavior with a traditional behavior intervention plan? Yeah, I see some of you shaking your heads. I know, because we talk about this. So that's an incredible impact right there, all right? So even though we were highly skilled behavior analysts, some of you, again, highly skilled behavior analysts or team members, and highly trained school teams, in some cases, we weren't having that kind of effect. So that's a big deal. This second slide is about LRE. So for those of you that are not in schools, that refers to least restrictive environments. And if you haven't heard, in Nebraska, that's a big deal. From our Department of Ed, we are on a journey to inclusion, and everybody needs to be on that journey with us, okay? So inclusive practices and access to least restrictive environments for special education students is a top priority of our Department of Education. And it's also directly related to Indicator 5 on our state performance plan. See, Department of Ed, I got that in there. So we wanted to ask if this programming had an impact on access to less restrictive environments. And before implementation on that top slide, almost 80% indicated that the target student that they worked with was spending less than 40% of their day in the general ed classroom. And after implementation, 51% were spending less than 40% of their day. So a significant improvement. I know that's a little confusing, but it's a significant improvement for those students in time spent in gen ed settings. And then over on this side, let's see, the right side for you, we also inquired whether this support enhanced the target students' access to less restrictive environments. So that might mean that the kiddo is in we'll call it the office, might also be known as the closet, right? Down the hallway by themselves. Did it increase their access to special education classrooms, into specialist classrooms? Are they able to go to PE, to art, you know, that kind of thing? And almost 80% agreed or strongly agreed that it increased their target students' access to lesser restrictive environments. So again, doors are getting open, kids are getting back into classrooms and around peers, access to specialized instruction. I think this is a big deal, right? For many of our students progressing out of isolated settings and able to be back around peers. So that's pretty exciting. All right, on this one, we wanted to know about the impact on the fundamental skills taught to replace problem behavior. And the trunk of that tree that Dr. Hanley showed is the communication response, and over 90% indicated that the program increased target students' functional communication. Additional foundation skills that, again, Dr. Hanley referenced of this program are toleration and cooperation. And you can see from the data that this program effectively helped students' ability to tolerate when they didn't get their way, and cooperate with adult or teacher instructions. And I find that to be very compelling. Would you like students who are a little more cooperative and willing to, do what you ask them to do? I think most of you would. So yeah, having these critical skills just opens doors for our individuals to access, again, peers. And if we think about the home setting and community environments, and you're going to hear in the stories that are coming, that's exactly what it's done. It's given families the ability to take their kiddos out into the community and be able to live life, right? And that's pretty exciting. All right, on this slide, we wanted to know if post-implementation, students were able to generalize their skills across people, settings, and tasks. And I would say these results show a promising trend in the generalization of skills. However, generalization of skills is really hard work for many individuals. And the 8% strongly disagree and the 11% that disagree, I think we have to pay attention to that. And I think we have to continue to refine our approach and ensure that skills that we teach in structured settings are transferring, right, to other settings and people and materials and that kind of thing. Wrapping up here. As schools are working very hard, and I shout out to the soups here, the principals here, the administrators, but we are in a climate where it is difficult to attract and retain qualified personnel. I know some of our districts are operating in a deficit with special education folks right now. And so post-intervention, over 90% or 95% of teams indicated that the behavior support helped increase job satisfaction. When you consider, Dr. Egan and I talked about this, that the response effort, before we do this work, we're asking teams to get highly trained. So Dr. Hanley's presenting 2 days tomorrow. We have 150 people coming to that training, all right? That's a commitment from schools. That's a commitment from school teams to go to the training, to get trained, meet with us, to design the assessment, design the treatment or the intervention plan. And so the response effort is big. And then we're saying, hey, we're also going to need weekly meetings. We're going to do some live coaching sessions. It's a big response effort from people. However, so when you consider that, despite that effort required for training, planning, meetings, fidelity checks, all of those things, these findings show the importance of behavior supports that teach critical skills, contribute to safe, joyful, productive educational environments, and staff and students are happy. I just wanted to show, I know we talked a little bit about the support. The only thing I will say on here is we just asked teams, hey, what kind of support that we provided did you really like? And it was kind of a smattering across the board. And I did want to shout out FTF. I was going to say that we learned all of these things from them, but I would say most of them. Now to the fun part. Just going to highlight a few of the comments. One thing I want to say is 37 people completed this survey for us. 25 took the time to write compelling statements of the ways that that things had been improved for families, for students in the school setting. So this first one I just wanted to highlight. Students spending most of the day in, again, their office, and at the end of the year, attending the end of the year field trip. The second one, I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but no longer needing to clear the classroom, right? That's a game changer. And on this slide, just love it. This year, it can work with different adults, access to peers, all of it is so good. And again, 25 people wrote just compelling statements. So one thing I didn't mention, this work has been done in Metro. You're going to hear from 2 Metro schools today, but it's done in rural schools across the state. It's done in our largest districts, and it's been done well in our smallest districts. So don't be discouraged if you're not a large district. If you feel like we're not in the metro area, we don't have access, we have schools just doing this work so well, regardless of size and regardless of location. All right, thank you.